Today we discuss how the New York Islanders let the value of J.G. Pageau slip through their fingers and what they can do about it now. We've got all that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you could email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all season long and all off-season long. And during the offseason, that means hirings, firings, trade rumors, free agency, and the draft. We'll have it all covered for you here on the Locked On Islanders podcast, and it's great to talk a little Isles hockey with you. Game time or anytime. I wanted to start off today's show talking about value, talking about maximizing assets. And anybody who has been following the NHL over the last, it's been almost 20 years since the salary cap was put into place, knows that since every team has its limitations with the salary cap, can't spend more than a certain amount of money, want to maximize the value that you get for that money. That it is important to manage your assets. And when I say assets, I mean players, draft picks, prospects, and the like. You've got to manage them well in order to have your team maximize its potential. And unfortunately, the Islanders clearly did not do that in the case of J.G. Pageau. And here is the bottom line. We have heard now for more than a year that J.G. Pageau may be on the block as far as he would be a player the Islanders would make available in a trade. And that makes sense. Every day, as you know, this team has a lot of natural centers on its roster. Brock Nelson, Bo Horvat, Matthew Barzal, Casey Cizikas, Kyle McLean, J.G. Pageau, Ruslan Ishkakov also, by the way, if he's back, a natural center. But you have 6 players who have established themselves as NHLers who are natural centers on your team. And guess what? There's only room for 4 of them to play center, realistically, in any given NHL game. And look, okay, so the Islanders moved Matthew Barzal to the wing. They moved Casey Cizikas to the wing. They found ways to get some of these guys on the ice. But you got a guy like J.G. Pageau right now on the wrong side of 30. Clearly, production-wise, offensively, his play deteriorating. He was, a 25-goal guy the first year the Islanders acquired him in a season split between Ottawa and the Islanders. This year, in 82 games, 11 goals, 33 points, a -8 plus-minus. J.G. Pageau has a cap hit of $5 million. And clearly, he is not producing at a rate that lives up to that salary. Okay? He just isn't at this point. What he gives you on the ice, especially with his offensive production or lack thereof, is not worth $5 million. And this is not something new. His offensive production, if you look at the numbers, has been going down realistically for a while now. We mentioned that the season that the Islanders acquired him, he had 26 goals total, 42 points. The goal total went down to 14 and then went up to 18 in 2021, 2022. And again, only played in 54 games in 2021. 2022, 2023, 70 games, only 13 goals. This year, 82 games, 11 goals, 33 points. The 33 points being his lowest total in a season where he played more than 55 games. Realistically, his lowest total since 2017, 2018. The problem is this. There were a lot of rumors, and it was reported in the hockey news, that the Islanders were offered a first-round pick to trade J.G. Pageau at the trade deadline last year. Lou Lamoriello opted not to make that move. Fast forward to now. We know the Islanders need to free up cap space in order to improve a team that right now its ceiling is squeaking into the playoffs, which is something that they did in 2 of the last 3 seasons. Haven't won a playoff round in the last 3 years. Didn't make the playoffs, lost in the first round in progression order. You got 6 centers, 7 if you count Ishkakov. J.G. Pageau, granted, he's a useful player. But now, according to most experts in the media and scouts and people who are connected with what's happening in the NHL, if you want to move J.G. Pageau this offseason, you probably have to use one of the 2 second rounders that the Islanders now have after they acquired it, in that trade with Chicago, to sweeten the deal to get another team to take J.G. Pageau off your hands. Think about this. The Islanders had that same excess of centers before the trade deadline this year. They knew at the trade deadline that, they were either going to barely make or barely miss the playoffs. They knew that going on a long playoff run was likely not impossible, but a long shot. Lou Lamoriello had an asset, still does, in J.G. Pageau that he was offered a first-round pick for. Now, to move that asset and free up that cap space to improve the team, which we know they need to do, instead of getting a first-round pick, you have to trade away a second-round pick. That is a huge depreciation of an asset for the New York Islanders. And that is not the way you maximize your team's potential. You want to buy low and sell high, and instead, it looks like Lou Lamoriello passed on selling high and now has to sell low. In fact, he has to sweeten the pot most likely in order to get another team to take J.G. Pageau and his $5 million a year salary off their hands. And, maybe it is that at the trade deadline, Kyle McLean had yet to really prove himself to Lou Lamoriello, so he didn't feel as comfortable. But even if you don't count Kyle McLean in that mix, you still had 5 NHL centers: Nelson, Horvat, Barzal, Pageau, Cizikas. You still had one extra. You still had enough room, even if McLean is considered stopgap. This was a lost opportunity. And the frustrating thing is, it's a lost opportunity that was blown because you didn't want to blow your chance to barely squeak into the playoffs and then hope against hope to pull off 4 consecutive upsets in 4 rounds to win a Stanley Cup. The smarter move clearly would have been to trade away Pageau, get the extra first. You could trade that first during this offseason to help bring in a goal scorer or, the winger or the puck moving defenseman that we know this team has needed for a long, long time. That would have been an option. You would have cleared up $5 million worth of cap space, and you would have had an extra first and still had your second. Again, hindsight is 20/20. I understand that, but this is trying to bet on a low percentage outcome and holding on to an asset too long. The expression in sports, the cliche in sports is always, it's better to get rid of a player a year too soon rather than a year too late. Lou Lamoriello did not do that in the case of J.G. Pageau. And as of right now, even though Pageau still has some value because he's good on faceoffs, because he can kill penalties, his value has dropped significantly. And the failure to take advantage of the value he had when he should have known that value was not likely to go back up or get greater based on the season Pageau was already having is a big lost opportunity for the New York Islanders. And, just a shame. All right, we have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We're going to talk about some former Islanders and update where they're going, some former players, coaches, etc. Plus, we'll have our player-by-player look at the Islanders. Bo Horvat today, so a big one. And then we have a 4th or 3rd line winger who was with the Islanders in 2000, 2001. That's our Islanders birthday of the day. See if you can guess who that is. He's a player who also played for the New York Rangers, by the way. So let's see if that helps at all. We've got all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time makes getting NBA final tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their lowest price guarantee, so Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. My favorite feature on Game Time is the view from your seat. You go on the app, and you can see a panoramic view from your seat before you purchase the tickets, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I wanted to give some updates on some former Islanders. And, to me, some of this stuff is good news. Some of this stuff is not such great news. Let's start with the good news. Kyle Okposo, former Islander, now in his 17th NHL season and quite possibly his last. he is headed to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in his career with the Florida Panthers. And, he was with Buffalo for 8 years. Before that, he was an Islander for 8 years. Hadn't been in the playoffs since 2016, his last year with the Islanders, because the Sabres have not been a playoff team. Got traded at the trade deadline to the Panthers to give them some experience and leadership and depth for the playoffs. And boy, Okposo gets the job done. Played 11 of the 17 playoff games for Florida, has 2 assists, but really has helped the team in, doing a lot of those little things that have helped him. He was a first-round pick of the Islanders back in 2004, spent 9 years with the Islanders, and added 7 goals and 15 points in 24 playoff games. So, this was great to see Kyle Okposo get into the Stanley Cup Final, and will he win that elusive cup? Here's one of the things Okposo said: I know I'm not going to be able to do this forever, and I know that I'm nearing the end of the road for sure. But when you get into a game like that and you get the atmosphere and you're starting to feel it, some jump and some legs, you're finishing your checks and creating chances, it's just a phenomenal feeling. And right now, Okposo probably this is his last best chance to win a Stanley Cup. I know a lot of Islander fans probably pulling for the Panthers, even though, Florida, kind of a conference rival team. The Islanders have played in the playoffs before. But, Kyle Okposo, well, yeah, let's hope he can pull one off for the New York Islanders. Now, some news about Lane Lambert, who we know the Islanders let go mid-season when they hired Patrick Waugh. Lambert may be in consideration to get a job with the Toronto Maple Leafs as an assistant. Craig Berube now the coach in Toronto. And Lambert, according to Darren Drager of TSN, is a candidate to join the Maple Leafs coaching staff as an assistant. We know, look, Lane Lambert's results as a head coach with the Islanders were mixed at best. We know he did not accomplish what he wanted to accomplish for the Islanders, but at the same time, he has been a darn good assistant coach under Barry Trotz in Washington and Nashville with the Islanders. So, in my mind, I would love to see Lane Lambert be successful. And if he can get a job with the Maple Leafs, working with Craig Berube, boy, he'd have a lot of talent to coach, including some guy named Tavares. But, whatever. Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews. Yeah, that would be William Nylander. That would be a good place for Lane Lambert to land as an associate coach. Another move, by the way, Jack Capuano, former Islanders head coach, no longer going to be an associate coach for the Ottawa Senators. The Senators, made a coaching change midseason, so Cappy is out. Now, there are rumors that Capuano could be in line for a job with the Minnesota Wild. We'll have to see if that pans out. But Capuano no longer going to be with Ottawa. And by the way, Capuano, who coached for 7 seasons with the Islanders, has 227 wins. Only Al Arbor with 552. So, literally more than double the total of Capuano. But Jack Capuano, second in Islanders history in head coaching wins. So we wish Cappy the very best. Say what you want about how things worked out when he coached the Islanders. Capuano, always a good guy, always a class act, and we certainly wish him all the best. And, hopefully he will find another job and find it quickly. So 3 updates there on some former Islanders. 1 player who is in the Stanley Cup Final, 2 coaches who are out of a job but rumored to be finding new ones. So hopefully that will work out for them. We have got more to get to on today's show. We will talk about we'll continue our player by player review of the Islanders season. Big one today, Bo Horvat. What was his season like? What can we expect from him in the future? Did he meet expectations, and in what areas? We'll talk about that, plus our Islanders birthday of the day. All that coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So we continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders season. Yesterday, we were doing Hudson Fasching. We've done, more than 3 weeks worth of these sort of breakdowns of these players. And today, Bo Horvat. Horvat, in the first year of the big extension he signed with the Islanders, an extension that, essentially means that Bo Horvat is being paid $8.5 million a year. Horvat ended up being productive for the Islanders, played in 81 games, finished with 33 goals, 68 points. He was a -1, had 39 penalty minutes on the season, 10 power play goals out of his 33, 1 shorty, and 6 game-winning goals right there. Took 248 shots, which, by the way, is a new career high for Bo Horvat. And, his shooting percentage right around his career numbers. His career is 13.6 this year, 13.3. Gave the Islanders 19 minutes and 42 seconds of ice time. Big in the faceoff circle, 54% success rate there. Blocked 42 shots, had 61 hits. Came through in the clutch, 3 overtime game winners, and I think gave the Islanders a player, I think importantly, who could help maximize the productivity of Matthew Barzal. Lord only knows if they had a legitimate top 6 winger to go with Bo and Barzy, how much more the Islanders might be able to get out of both of them. Horvat, I think, got the job done for the Islanders. He belongs, I think. Look, Cal Clutterbuck is now an unrestricted free agent. He wore a letter. He wore an A on his sweater. It would not surprise me at all if Clutter is not back, or even if he is, that Bo Horvat ends up wearing an A on his sweater. Or if they move on from Anders Lee, I would think Horvat would be one of the people who would be considered to be the next captain of the Islanders. Horvat, pretty good defensively, at least responsible defensively. I'm not going to say he's a shutdown guy or a great back checker, but he doesn't ignore the defensive zone. And, you're playing on an Islanders team that is not as prolific offensively as the Canucks were when he was there, especially, Bruce Boudreau, when he was coaching the Canucks, was more of a little less structured and a little more offensive minded. The fact that he got 33 goals this year with the Islanders, and I think part of the reason we saw that increase from Bo Horvat, he got comfortable here. And I think that's important. Last year after the trade deadline, he struggled. He didn't have Barzal for a lot of the time because he was injured. And then when he came back in the playoffs, he wasn't 100%. Horvat also, his family wasn't there. He wasn't familiar with the area. It was an adjustment. And I think he made that adjustment now. And look, he's going to be an Islander now for the next 7 years. And I think that Bo Horvat is looking pretty good as far as the Islanders are concerned. He will almost certainly be back next year. I couldn't imagine that he wouldn't be. And, unless the Islanders pull off some kind of blockbuster, he will once again be the first line center for the New York Islanders. He will once again be on the first power play unit. He will be teamed with Matthew Barzal, and he will be one of the leaders in the locker room. Again, with the right addition to that top line, I think Bo Horvat is capable, and Matthew Barzal, they're both capable of producing even better numbers than what they produced. And it'll be interesting to see how Horvat handles a full season under Patrick Roy. Keeping him healthy and happy is important. He is sort of a heart and soul kind of a guy for this team. And again, hopefully we get that additional winger, a legitimate top six winger. It doesn't have to be a 30 or 40 goal guy, although I'd love it if they somehow could. But you want to get a player who is a legitimate top six winger to add to that line. And that's not Pierre Engvall, and that's not Hudson Fasching, and that's not Casey Cizikas, and it wouldn't be Uncle Leo. Again, no offense to any of those guys. And yes, I know Uncle Leo, it's a joke because the Islanders did that previously with Kamara. But, to me, you need, at least on your first line, a 20 to 25 goal guy who can complement your other two. It doesn't have to be a sniper, but boy, it would be great if it could be. But a legitimate top six forward is most welcome and could help the Islanders get Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal to an even higher level. All right, time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And today is the 50th birthday of former Islanders winger Jeff Toms. Toms, drafted by the Devils, never did play for them. A 9th-round pick in 1992. Made his NHL debut with the Tampa Bay Lightning in 95-96. Later played for the Capitals. Joined the Islanders in 2000-2001. Played 39 games for the Isles. 2 goals, 6 points, 10 penalty minutes. Ended up being picked up by the Rangers on waivers midway through the 2000-2001 season. Stayed with the Rangers for one more year. Was then dealt midseason to Pittsburgh. Played for Florida in 2002-2003. And then finished his career in Switzerland and Russia, hanging up his skates after the 2010-2011 year. Career numbers, 236 NHL games played, 22 goals, 55 points, 59 penalty minutes. He played in one NHL playoff game, did not register a point. That was with the Capitals, by the way, in 97-98. One of Jeff Tom's better games as an Islander. How about November 18th? 2000 in San Jose, Islanders visiting the Sharks. Wade Flaherty, the goalie for the Islanders, Evgeny Nabokov, a future Islander, the goalie for the Sharks. And in this game, Islanders had been down 3-2 late in the second period. When our Islanders' birthday of the day, Jeff Toms put the puck in the net, his first goal of the year, his first goal as an Islander. Taylor Pyatt and Mike Stapleton with the assists. Unfortunately, the Islanders end up losing this game by a score of 5-3 for Jeff Toms. He had the goal. He was a +1. He had 2 penalty minutes, scored on his only shot, and only played 3 minutes and 38 seconds. Again, Tom, a fourth line kind of a guy, a role player, but he did do his role respectively. Jeff Toms is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone again for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we will continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders. We'll talk about Ruslan Ishkakov. Does he have a future as an Islander? What is he capable of? How did he look in his brief 2-game stint with the Islanders? We'll break all that down and a lot more on tomorrow's show. And don't forget, check the show notes. We'll have the link if you're interested in getting together at a sports bar on Long Island to view one of the games of the Stanley Cup Finals with me and a lot of our regular viewers and listeners, please check out those show notes. It'll be there. You could click on the link and it'll tell you how to tell us, that you're interested. So make sure you check that out. It'd be great to get together, watch a little hockey, have some food and beverages, and just enjoy ourselves. So let me know about that. Until then, stay safe. Have a great day, everybody. And of course, let's go Islanders.